Hello and welcome to Growing Tech Fast, the condensed podcast in which we discuss growing tech startups with those who have grown them. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Santo Criscuolo. Now Santo is SVP of Growth at Engen, a digital marketing agency that helps brands at all maturity levels, from heritage to disruptor, to learn, evolve and thrive. Now Santo has spent his 30-year career in advertising and marketing, helping his teams and his clients innovate and grow. He began his career in broadcast media and transitioned to digital in the late 90s, leading strategy, marketing, and sales at companies like Microsoft, Adobe, and United Online, as well as various tech startups, with one of those, Onvia, resulting in a successful IPO. He has worked with numerous Fortune 500 brands, all kinds of agencies, just about all the major publishers, SSPs, and DSPs, and negotiated over $1 billion in contracts in his career. Santo, absolute pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Connor. I am chuffed to bits to be here.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. And the place I always like to kind of start really, Santo, is to look at your current situation. We just discussed there, you're obviously SVP of Growth at Engen. And the first question that always comes to my mind is there's so much opportunity and choice out there, right? So what is it that made you choose specifically to join Engen out of all the other possible companies I'm sure you could have chosen to pursue?
Yeah, sure. So, first, everything media related, content, advertising, marketing, understanding consumer behavior, analytics, technology, the intersections of all of these things present, I think, really fascinating opportunities and challenges to solve. So it always keeps it fresh and interesting. And as a full funnel agency with a high degree or high focus on digital, certainly all of that, Engen plays a role in all of that. And next, when I spoke with the president and CEO at the time, this is 2 years ago, Engen was at a stage where marketing, sales, biz dev, partnerships, how we market the agency, our team structure, how we engage with brands pre-contract, how we collaborate internally to create bespoke engagements for the brands we work with. All of this had to be rethought, retooled, and rebuilt in order to scale the business. And I had done a fair amount of this sort of work in past roles, but never on the agency side. So it prevented a really compelling opportunity. Excuse me. And then it comes down to the people, which always it plays a factor in all my decisions about what's the next role I'm going to take on. And I mentioned, the conversation I had with the CEO and the president, and I knew within about 5 or 10 minutes that I wanted to work with these guys. It was really clear that our values aligned. I think of them as hungry, humble, and smart. They're very pragmatic and creative forward thinkers, exactly the sort of people I wanted to work with. In your career, you spend a lot of time with the people you work with. And so it's super important to have some sort of alignment of values and vision and how you lead. And I would say, well, I'll finish with this. 2 years in, arguably the toughest 2 years any of us have ever faced, right? I'm really thrilled with what we've accomplished so far in the direction we're heading.
Good, absolutely. I love the emphasis on the people. I think you're right. You spend more time with those people than you often do with your own family. So
absolutely, yeah.
So important, and that's a great, I think, trio to have. I think you said hungry, humble, and smart. So that's really cool. And yeah, as you said, it's been quite the journey. I think anyone who joined a company 2 years ago has been through quite the mill, I imagine, getting, I imagine things have obviously been very different than what you would have imagined coming in. However, obviously you have had some fantastic growth over there, and congratulations. I think it'd be admirable in any context, let alone obviously what we've had with the pandemic. I know, recently named in Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies in America, 2021. Adweek's fastest growing companies as well, again in 2021. It's really, really impressive, first and foremost, Santo. But what I'm really keen to understand is what you would say have been some of the biggest contributors to that growth.
Sure. Well, look, first, thanks for highlighting the awards. And a thought or two before I answer your question. We don't win them without the partners and team pulling in the same direction, right? And we're lucky enough to work with some really innovative brands, and our media and creative teams are full of excellent subject matter experts. And so they really embody that hungry, humble, and smart mentality I mentioned. And then I think look, it would be disingenuous if I didn't mention the impact or the context of the pandemic, and in that first year, right, brands really had to expand their digital initiatives because it was the only way to keep businesses going, right, given stay-at-home orders and social distancing guidelines. And then we come out of it, right, and things are feeling better, and then the Great Resignation begins. And here in the States, it's something like 3 or 4% of the workforce is turned over every month, right? So create some serious hurdles for additional hurdles for brands. And so, and I promise I'm getting to your question, Connor, but our founders and much of the original New Engen team came out of Zulily. And if you're not familiar with Zulily, it's a flash deal site with thousands of SKUs that change every single day, right? And in 3 or 4 years, they achieved I think it was a $3 billion IPO. And so in order to make this happen, a large part of that was developing the mindset, the skills, the strategy, the tactics. And now I'm getting to your question, the structure, the processes that allow them, or that would allow them to be extremely agile. And over the last 5 years, we've taken that knowledge and experience gained there and built a full funnel digital agency with the intent to be the agile marketing arm for our clients, right? So it's first that commitment to a mindset and approach to everything we do around agility. And so pandemic comes along, chaos ensues, and we were well positioned to and very adept at pivoting and navigating change. And I'm not saying it was easy, because it wasn't. It was absolutely difficult for all of us on many, many levels. But without that agility and that mindset built around agility, it would have been a lot tougher. And I don't think we'd be talking about the words that you mentioned. And so what drove our growth? I mentioned agility. I touched on marketing and our marketing and advertising expertise, and I touched on people. And I think we think of marketing as a team sport in the extreme. And so the number of moving pieces on the client side and on the New Engen side is super, super high. And if we're not all aligned, and this is, I think, you can have a great product, you can have great creative, you can have a great marketing team, but if everybody's not aligned and pulling in the same direction, and goals and objectives, how we make decisions, the values we use to make those decisions, the data we consider as our source of truth, what the target audience is, the tech we're going to use. Without that alignment, I think it's almost impossible to grow. And so we have worked really hard as a company internally and then with our clients to make sure we're aligned on all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I don't think there's any, whether it's sales leader that I've spoke to, business leader, or anyone who hasn't mentioned the word, Santo, agility, the need to pivot as well. I think that's obviously been crucial for any and all businesses, and probably really spans the horizon of companies that have been, successful and managed to grow throughout COVID. So it's interesting. I just want to hone in on now something that we've spoke about a bit before, Santo, and that's this idea of the importance of kind of diversifying your marketing channels, right? I think it'd be a really interesting topic. So I just want you to talk a little bit more about New Engen's approach specifically to ensuring that your client partners are getting the most out of their marketing channels.
Sure. Well, God, we could talk about this for hours. The number of options for consumers to engage with brands is soaring. New emerging social media players, new streaming services. Google and Facebook are working to own the entire user experience, from like, I'm mildly interested in mountain bikes to I'm buying a mountain bike and going on a mountain bike trip, for example. Obviously, Amazon's dominance comes into play, and other brands like Walmart are creating marketplace ecosystems, add privacy first tech and regulation, and I think consumers are more discerning than ever. So brands are facing some really serious challenges on this front. And so everything we do is bespoke for each brand, but generally we take an audience-centric approach. We start with market research, the vertical landscape, competitive analysis, and insights that come from managing about $1 billion of media across all of the digital channels, across brands that span everything from home improvement to healthy soda pop and to cryptocurrency, right? So lots of different channels, lots of dollars and insights that come out of that. And then, we develop the target audience, we define the channels, and then we test, learn, and iterate. And we're continuously redefining or refining the target audience while optimizing creative and channel mix based on the performance, based on the data that comes from all of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's really interesting was what you said about, there's so many avenues now, probably more avenues now than ever, right, Santo, in the ways in which consumers can interact with their brands. You think said new emerging social channels. I think, I'm way behind the times with these. This new rise of TikTok even is so big now, right? And it's just, I think, just getting more and more bigger and bigger the ways in which we can interact. So I think it's really, really interesting. As you said, that this needs to diversify. And what I want to get at next is obviously with Santo, that sheer volume of ways in which people can interact. I think it's also fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's more noise than ever across all these platforms as well. So I guess with that comes a real need for brands to produce, compelling creative content that can break through the noise. So I just want to kind of tap into your thoughts and New Engen's idea and how they view creative development. And how do you ensure the creative content you're developing on behalf of clients is actually having, maximum impact?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And you mentioned TikTok, and I didn't even mention the rise of influencers, right? And the last data I saw, it's like $1 billion sort of channel now, right? Influencer making, not any one influencer is making $1 billion, but across the industry, right? That there's just tons and tons of money there. And so I think a couple of things come to mind when you ask about creative, and brands, agencies, marketing consultants, you name it, right? Really have to expand their definition of creative. It's no longer a banner ad, right? It's streaming on YouTube. It's content that influencers produce. And then it's all the traditional stuff that, your traditional sort of TV type ads that you might see on linear television or on a streaming service like YouTube TV or Hulu, for example, right? So expand the definition, and then look, we've always believed that creative is a lever that you can pull to drive growth, and to your point, it is playing a bigger role. It's going to play an even bigger role. And we think of it as an always-on flywheel and not something that is planned and locked in every 6 months or every year. The technology, the channels, consumer behavior is just changing way, way too fast for that. So it's something you've got to set up, develop that mindset and set up the tactics, process, strategies that I keep talking about so that you can take advantage of whatever happens to be going on in the marketplace, or minimize risk that is created by what's going on in the marketplace. And look, 100% of our clients and 100% of the prospects that we talk to are emotionally invested in their brands. And so creating a flywheel that is always on, test, learn, rapid test, learn, iterate, it's a bit of a scary proposition for a lot of folks. And so we developed a variety of approaches that we can deploy based on the needs of the brand and their level of comfort in exploring the boundaries of their brand, which means, like I say, everything we do is custom and bespoke, not just the creative, but how we engage with the teams, from creating original assets to simply taking the assets that they already have and creating the sandbox that we can play in and then optimizing within those. That said, there's a common denominator for all the engagements, and it's that alignment between our media team, our creative team, and our analytics team. They work really closely with the clients to ensure we understand where there are opportunities to scale and where we need to pull back. And all our creative folks, graphic, motion designers, copywriters, videographers, producers, photographers, all of them approach creative development and optimization with a performance mindset.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. There was something there, Santo, actually just come to mind. I can't remember what it quite was. Like you said, I think when you were talking about, how I think you were talking about advertising. You kind of touched on ads and how we have to get beyond just that. But made me think it was interesting to get your perspective. Not something we've spoken about before, but it's something a few of my clients have been discussing, which is how how impactful is, I guess, the death of the cookie and, the idea of this third-party data? I don't know if you've got any ideas on that and how that might actually be changing the landscape potentially.
Yeah, gosh, I'll tell you. So I just spent last week in New York, and we met with probably, 15 to 18 clients over a 3-day period. And it's a first market trip in 23 months. So it's really fantastic to get back out there and in person. And this question came up with every single one of them. And we've seen across the board anywhere from 30 to 40% sort of, negative impact on Facebook specifically because of the iOS 14 updates. And look, man, it's not going to get easier in the short term. Google is slated to deprecate cookies, I think in 2023. Mm-hmm. That may or may not happen. There's, if they do that and they take that away from everybody else, but they still have the ability to do it, well, is that a monopoly of some sort? Are there some would Google be in violation of some, basic trade practices? And so that may be pushed out, but look, man, like I say, it's not getting easier. And so we talked a little bit about channel mix and the need to explore other channels, right? So we work with our clients on a low risk testing strategies to explore new channels, new audiences, and creative. And I think again, that always on that test, learn, iterate flywheel, the willingness to, I think, loosen the reins a little bit on your brand and the way that you've done things in the past. It will be extremely difficult to replace that 30 to 40% that has been impacted on Facebook. And so you've got to find other channels. And so we're making bets on marketplaces, and we talked just a little bit about influencer marketing, all this, the TikToks, the YouTubes, that sort of creative and that sort of engagement. I also think that it's really important going forward to pay attention, or what we would call social listening and awareness, right? Great deal of polarization throughout the world right now, and you combine this with the immediacy of content and technology today. So got to be aware and sensitive to consumer mood. It's more important than ever. And then I think a really holistic approach that is focused on, holistic measurement approach that is focused on business impact and not just channel level views. This will help with budget agility because brands won't be tied so tightly to their channel level KPIs.
Yeah, really interesting. It's such a great topic of conversation at the moment. Certainly something that's been discussing a lot with our clients as well. So you're really interested to get your thoughts and take on that. So cool. I know we're coming up to the end of time, Santo, but I just want to take, I guess, to kind of wrap things up, actually. We've talked a lot around the last couple of years and the tremendous work you've been doing at New Engen. But as I briefly mentioned in my introduction, you've had a fantastic career, actually, being part of a whole different number of types of organizations, large corporations, to actually successfully, scaling company through to an IPO. So what would be most interesting, I guess I want to get your thoughts on, is you would have seen a lot of growth over your time, and we've spoke about that specifically in New Engen. So there could be some overlap here, but what I'd like to know, and what our listeners frequently ask, Santo, is any, secret sauce around growth. So I'm trying to get a gist here from the breadth of your experience. Are there any consistent traits you see in these companies where, you've seen and been part of dynamic growth, or any particular strands that you would say they're always there?
Yeah, no, look, it's a good question. And I don't know if I have an answer that will be super unique. I think there's some, call it tried and true or tested principles, but, customer-centric approach. One of the things I appreciate about New Engen is, obviously our founders, the senior leadership team, the investors, they want to drive ROI, right? That's why a big reason why we get into business. But where you focus, do you focus on driving your revenue, or do you focus on doing great work on behalf of your clients, partners, and community? And we're of the belief, and where I've seen businesses do best, and where I've enjoyed my time the best, is when we're focused on doing good work, being of service to those groups that I mentioned. Revenue, I believe if you do those things, and I think our senior leadership team believes if you do those things, revenue will follow. So that's important. I think a self-reflective mindset, right? Adapt or die. And there are lots of businesses that we could name, brands that when they were founded were on the very, very cutting edge, and they didn't adapt, and they're no longer in business, or they are a fraction of what they used to be. And so that mentality of constantly pushing yourself to challenge your beliefs and preconceived notions and how you do everything, so constantly reinventing yourself, right? I think that's super important, and wherever I've been where there's been continued growth, that has certainly been an important factor. And then I think we've touched on this a lot already, but it comes down to the people. And even if you are, even where I've been at a software company like Microsoft, right, where tech drives billions of, the software drives billions of dollars, without the people to run the business and innovate and create and engage with partners, clients, and consumers, great software doesn't matter. There's also examples where the better product didn't make it because they didn't have all of the other things, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think you said, to adapt or die. It's great. It reminds me of I'm obviously British, as an English writer actually, who he was a priest and a writer, and he used to say, to live is to change, and to change often is to be perfect. And it was that idea that everything that lives and continues is always consistently evolving. So I really like that. And I loved as well, obviously, what you said there, I think, around being customer centric, and actually doing good work and being of good service. Sounds like over and above revenue at all costs seems to be, the kind of mantra. And as you said, the former there should feed the latter. It should ultimately drive revenue.
Yeah, I love that quote from the writer. You'll have to send me an email and tell me what that is later. But the other part that jumps out at me there too is, we talked about people, and you're talking about the willingness to constantly change. And I think I'll say culture or work environment is critical in that. And so the places where I think people can actually be self-reflective and question what they're doing and change, there has to be, call it that psychological safety, right? So you can take smart risks, you can take calculated risks, you can challenge each other without it becoming sort of personal and everybody becoming overly sensitive, right? And so long as we're all aligned on what the goals are, the values are, and how we communicate and how we make decisions, having challenging conversations actually becomes a lot of fun. It becomes a catalyst for growth, and it becomes a catalyst for that change. And so I think, when you said what you said about that, or the quote, it sparked a memory, and that's really important to these businesses that I think continue to grow.
Yeah.
Quarter after quarter, year after year.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I think we're coming up to the end of time. We can probably just keep going, but I have to draw it to a close. I wanted to thank you so much, Santo, for everything you've shared, both from your own personal perspective, told us a lot more about New Engen as well. Obviously some great work there. So congratulations again. Thank you so much just for being a part of this and for sharing all of your insights and knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thanks again. And to our listeners, thank you very much. Until next time, goodbye.